All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the COVID-19 training for restaurant workers. This video is and webinar is an opportunity for you to ask Q&A as well as hear from both Jordan Fladell, the CEO of MLevel, and David Abes, the owner of Dash Hospitality Group. The goal obviously today is to give you some information on training that's been put together and hear from both of the organizations on what they're doing. My name is Kerry Brown. Thank you for joining us today. I actually work for SAP, but my reason for joining today is that I am a big supporter of both the restaurant and bar scene in Atlanta and a donor and good friend to the Giving Kitchen. So this brings together training, which is a part of my professional life, and food and wine, which is a part of my personal life. So thank you. What I'd like to start with, David, is to ask you, so, other than we all know COVID-19 is going on, why are we doing this?
Well, biggest thing is the hospitality community. I mean, we're always about giving back. And when Jordan and I were talking about, this whole program, it really, that's what it's all about is we have to fight harder than we've ever fought in this business. And it's the toughest times we've ever had after 9/11, after 2008. And we're like, what can we do to, give back to the community?
So when I look right now, I know a lot of restaurants around town are doing takeout and other creative ways to try and stay going. Mm-hmm. I look right now, there's obviously the legal side of what's been allowed to open up, but everyone's trying to say, how do we return to work? So one of the struggles certainly is to figure out how to do that and share some information. What are some of the challenges you see that are making it difficult to reopen?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest struggle is, you're treating this like you're a brand new restaurant. You have to pivot to completely what you've been doing. If you're used to doing it one way, you have to think completely different from that. So I think that's the biggest struggle is how to do that, whether it's takeout, patio dining, all the different setups on that. I mean, the biggest struggle is, the staff. I mean, getting them back to work, making them feel comfortable when they're at work. Yes, they're nervous as could be when they're there. But I've seen, people are definitely coming out and about a lot more this week.
I went over to Hazel Jane's this weekend to pick up some wine that I had purchased to get their staff some funding, and the Beltline is very, very busy.
Yep.
So curious, when you look at this training and connecting with MLevel, why MLevel? What's the connection here that makes sense for everyone?
MLevel, I mean, when Jordan, we've known each other for a long time, and they've done training for all different types of industries. And the biggest thing when we started with this platform is make it easy. There's so many things that, just to follow through and all that. We have so many moving parts going on right now that we're like, okay, what's a program that the managers and the owners aren't going to really have to think about it. And it's so straightforward. We've all sat through those serve safe classes and all that. This all day long, they lose you. This is like straight right to the point. So that's what excited me.
So I'm curious then, when you look at the impact you think this program can provide beyond just today, because obviously, everyone's working their schedules that they need to do. What do you see this being able to do, both the call right now where people can ask questions, but also the opportunity beyond that? How do you see people using this?
I mean, the biggest thing is how you can track, what's going on. It's very concise about here's what the program is. And yeah, a lot of times they miss questions, but you don't know who missed what or who, when it comes to cleanliness or this safety or mask or whatever it is. This program really, that dashboard really says that David Abes, this is what he missed these questions, and and then it's a good coaching moment for it.
All right, well, that's a perfect set. Go ahead, David, please.
No, and it evolves. Like every time the guidelines change, that's what we're doing is we're changing the program to go along with it. So it's not like, oh, here it is, and that's it. I mean, we've changed it already 3 times, the program. So, and Jordan can get into that in more detail.
That's excellent. That's good to know. So as the rules change, as the governance changes, this will change to match that. Yes. Okay. Well, perfect segue. Jordan Fladell, thank you for being patient and listening in. Jordan Fladell, the CEO of MLevel. Tell us a bit more about what you've done with David to make this work for everybody.
Yeah, so I mean, as David mentioned, we kind of took a step back. We've always been thinking about how to help the community, right? As soon as COVID-19 came out, we started focusing on helping our clients, helping them get ready to essentially stay operational in certain cases and to train their employees effectively. And as we got through that experience when the Georgia opened up and we learned that restaurants were on the list, David became one of my first phone calls to understand how the community was going to react, right? Because we're always trying to find a way to leverage the power of our technology to come help the community in a way that's meaningful and impactful to the organization. So, when David talked to me about he was building a playbook for, an organization on how to open a restaurant, and I just said, well, PDFs and PowerPoints are great for people who have lots of time to read. But when we talk about employees, and especially employees that are coming into an hourly role, into a frontline worker role, you need to make things simple and concise, and you need to be able to make it trackable and measurable in a way that works for the owners of the business, right? Because I, as a CEO, understand liability and other things that come with that. So we got real excited about just taking and digitizing the content first and being able to touch the community in a way that matters to me. I mean, Kerry, you mentioned you're an avid supporter of the restaurant and bar community, and I'm an avid consumer of the restaurant and bar community as well. So, important to me that we get ourselves in the right spot. So that's kind of what springboarded us into the conversation, and really kind of got us down this path.
So just before we have you show us the solution that you put together, tell us who MLevel is, how long this is going to take, and is it something that we can do from our phones? So how does this all work? And then let's get a chance to take a look at it.
Sure. So a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and give you a little breakdown on how it's going to work. Then I'm going to go ahead and log in real time for you, and we'll get it all set up. So first of all, it's available on your phone, available on your desktop, available anywhere that has an internet connection, right? So it's really simple. It's about 3 modules that you have to go through to complete it. Actually, 2 that are required, I would say. And that's really around the front of the house, back of the house training, and just general operating procedures, and then a general assessment. The key is, as we go through this, you're going to get a chance to see, and I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second, step away from the screen and log in. You're going to see me go ahead and take you through the journey. And the key thing about going through this journey to understand is that it's really designed to take between about 10 to 20 minutes of your employee's time, right, to go through and pass. Now, they have to pass in order for that 10 to 20 minutes of time to actually become a reality, but that's the key. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up and logged in real quickly, and then I'll be back on to share my screen. How fast my fingers can type. It's always a good test. All right, so hopefully everyone will be able to see my screen, and let me know if you can. Everyone should be able to see.
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome. All right, so imagine now, for everybody who's on the webinar, just take a moment that you've got your employees, you just had your team huddle up. Maybe you've given them our URL here, or our web address to log into. They've logged in with their credentials, and now they're here. What we've done is we've standardized what's going on in the community in partnership with Michelle Stumpy over at Taylor English and her team, and David, to essentially ensure that these rules and regulations match what Governor Kemp is giving as guidelines to the restaurant community for opening. And these are the rules and regulations, right? So I will mention as we go through this, keep in mind that in the partnership we're creating for the long term, there's an opportunity to customize it. If the restaurant chooses to modify some of these rules or add to it and become more stringent, you have that opportunity to partner with David and his team and work with our team to essentially make that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing you're going to see is it's very easy. Hit the start button, and it's going to talk about the guidelines to keep my restaurant safe. I'm going to go through 3 individual little modules here. Each video is going to be about 2 minutes. I'm going to ask you some questions. Talk about 3 topics: dining room configuration and layout, employee safety and sanitation, and environmental safety and sanitation. I probably won't go through all 3 modules just because I want to give you a flavor of what's possible. I'll go through 1, and then we'll go through the quick couple questions. And then I really want to show you the analytics. I think that's really important you guys understand for what you're getting to protect your organization as well. So let's go ahead and let this video start, and we'll go ahead and do the first rollout here.
The following guidelines for configuration and layout will help your restaurant do what it can to provide for the health and safety of employees and patrons as we navigate reopening after the COVID-19 closures. To do your restaurant's part in providing a safe environment for the health and well-being of employees and patrons, signage will be posted at the front door indicating that no one with a fever or symptoms of COVID-19 is permitted in the facility. If you observe a customer showing symptoms of coronavirus, notify management immediately. Weather permitting, please keep the front door open so no one needs to touch a handle. Certain precautions are being taken to ensure 6 feet of distance is maintained. It is up to you to make sure these guidelines are followed. In order to maintain social distancing as recommended by the CDC, lines or other markers will be placed throughout the restaurant to indicate the distance required by current guidelines. The CDC recommends people keep at least 6 feet of distance between themselves and others. To comply with required guidelines for distance in the dining area, tables may be removed or blocked off using signage and/or painter's tape. Other furniture, extra chairs, and bar stools may be removed or moved. Do not allow guests to move furniture, add chairs to a table, or bar stools at the bar. Party sizes should be limited to no more than 10 guests. The law prohibits people who don't live together from sitting at the same table. Hosts should advise customers of this rule and ask guests if they live in the same household before seating them together. If your restaurant allows bar seating, the proper distance between bar guests will be marked on the bar top, on fixed bar stools, or otherwise using painter's tape or some other marking. Assist patrons in complying with these markings and social distancing. Notify management of any patrons who refuse to comply. If there is lounge furniture in your establishment, your restaurant may space it 6 feet or more apart for social distance as well. Don't allow patrons to move the furniture and violate the social distance requirements. Your restaurant will designate or mark appropriate paths for patrons for ingress and egress, as well as to and from restrooms to allow for maximum distance. Assist patrons by explaining the markings so they can comply with distance requirements. Hand sanitizer stations may be placed around the restaurant by management. Become familiar with those locations and let patrons know where they are. Patrons will appreciate that you are showing concern for their health and safety.
Now, what's awesome about this is instead of just having a 10-minute or 20-minute or 30-long-minute video that somebody watched and you have no data on whether they retained it, what we're doing is we're breaking apart these modules into bite-sized chunks. That video may have seemed like it took a long time, but it was about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And now I'm going to get a couple of questions that I have to answer. Now, what's cool about our system is as we ask this question, we're going to capture the response, right? So I'm going to get this one right. So you can give me some nice positive feedback as if I was doing this with role play with my manager. And going through that, right? Kind of that in-person touch. The next question, now here's an example. David talked about changing regulations. Literally, when we rolled this module out, the state of Georgia decided 6 people at a table was the required amount. Before we even gotten to the point of having the first restaurant sign up, which we now have 15 restaurant organizations, that covers about 30 in total, they changed it again. So I'm going to go ahead and get it wrong. And you can see here, it gives the ability to give feedback. Right, which is also important that your employee understands why when they've gotten that question right or wrong and what it's all about. We are not going to watch all of them about employee safety and sanitation just for time today. Just understand if you have questions.
The following video outlines the guidelines.
I'm going to go ahead and quit this out real quickly. The other thing we did to this program that I think is really important is we aggregated the 3 videos that are there that are each about 2 minutes long with their couple questions, and we put together a final exam. Okay. And this final exam is that proof in the pudding. Not in the restaurant industry, but I have a client in Atlanta, Georgia at MLevel called Pull Apart. And Pull Apart stayed open as an essential business during this and used this for their retail store operations. And they've unfortunately already had a complaint come in from OSHA, but through the fact that they gave an assessment, they were able to send the assessment results directly to OSHA, and OSHA would close the complaint as showing that they had done their part to keep people safe. And that's really important as we go through this. So I won't answer all of our questions just because I don't want to embarrass myself on my knowledge, but I'll go through a few. Again, you're going to see repeat questions. Reinforcement is a good thing, by the way. The more people see things, the more people get a chance to go through them, the better off they are to retain it, right? Just like anything else, the more we practice it, the better we get. And I think you guys in the restaurant industry know this. I remember my first job coming out of high school, when I finally got the chance to become more than a busboy and move to a server, you know, the more practice I got, the better I got at that job. So I'll go through. I'll get some stuff right or wrong. Don't want to bore you to tears, but it's a variety of questions that come through. Very easy to do this. You can see why I'm not a master at this content yet through the process, right? Some correct, and these are what we call image hotspot questions, where you get a chance to tailor them and so forth, right? So you go through a series of these questions and answers. Again, if you were an employee going through this, I would say there's probably a budget of about 20 minutes of time. And you continue to answer as you go along. Now, that's cool and neat and fun, but what really becomes interesting here as the organization, and I assume most of our folks on this call are in the operations or in the ownership part of the business, is really what happens next when you talk about the analytics. Let me do this in real time with you guys. I know my CTO is on and watching, so he's super excited to let me play with my technology and let it operate in real time. But behind the scenes is what really matters, right? So not only are we delivering you this visual ability to have a digital distribution and tracking component for your organization, but we're also tracking everything that goes on inside the program, right? So unlike the certificate you get when you complete, and I always make, is it the Serve Safe modules, I think they're called, or Safe Serve, or I think I've got one of those words backwards and forwards. You get this little certificate that says that. In our world, we think that's great. You get a certificate that says you watched a video, maybe you've passed a few questions. But what really matters in today's world around particularly this health concern, right? You guys run restaurants, you're talking to customers, your employees, is now I get to see how my team understands the information I've trained them on. Right? So I've invested the energy in training, I've built my blueprint, my operational plan, and now I can go in and look at things like, hey, how's the team doing? You know, right now I can see that if my team was doing this, and this is our demo data, so you can see we're not very good at environmental safety, I can click on that as the manager, right? And get access to see the story, and see what people are struggling to understand about environmental safety. And what the alarming fact is, I can tell that the back of the house is actually more of a challenge than the front of the house. And I can go ahead and say, you know what, that's interesting, but show me exactly what questions people were struggling to understand, right? So I don't have to waste time. I don't have to have the whole team together. I don't have to repeat what isn't working and just give it a few seconds here, it'll build up. It allows me to essentially look at, in a concept, what are those people struggling to learn? And what I can see here is that the back of my house areas need to be cleaned every 60 minutes is my alarming challenge in my organization. And in particular, the floors and the knives are what my team are struggling with. And even better, if I want to go drill through, I can go ahead and find out who got that right or wrong. Right? I'm only touching on the tip of what matters most here inside the analytics. There's so much more power. But you know, this is why we're investing in this, because it's really important organization to be able to not only train your employees, but also see what they don't understand, so you have the ability to protect not only your employees, but also your customers who are coming in, which are the lifeblood of every organization, both your employees and customers. Kerry, hopefully I covered a good bit there in a short time period, and I'll stop sharing and turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you. Couple of questions. Who qualifies for this and how do they qualify? And is there any cost?
Great question. So David and I have made the decision to partner together and provide this to any organization that's 500 for free for the next 10 weeks. So you have to go to our website and sign up. If you have over 500 employees in your organization, we will partner with you. I will say this, and I'm our CEO, so you don't have to ask any further. We understand that you have not had revenue for the past 60, 90 days. You're not come out of pocket. If you're an organization larger than 500 people, we will partner with you and find a model for success. We are going to invest in your future, in our future, and the future of our state. So I don't know if that was a very long-winded answer to your question, but that is how it works.
Thank you. I have another question. Who's using it? Anyone? You mentioned the one customer you had that's not in the restaurant industry. Who is already connected with you and looking at using this in the Atlanta community?
So we have 15 individual restaurants that are signed up. I believe the furthest one along is Dantana's in our journey, if I'm not mistaken, David.
Yes.
Who's farthest along, but we've seen 15 individual restaurant concepts sign up. So, we have folks, I know the Star Provisions family signed up. We don't know if they've deployed yet, but we've seen them signed up, and they're all off to the variety. We're hopeful that the rest of them get through the process this week of getting employees. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? We're the final mile. Right. So this is the employee training, not the operational plan. And I think as you saw this weekend, Kerry and David, people are opening, but they're still not, you know, fully all the way to bright yet.
I think one of the big things though is like the implementation on this. I mean, because all the restaurateurs have so many other things going on to get this thing going. It's not that difficult and to administer it and all that. And that's what the MLevel team is really here to support. A lot of times you have this program and it's like, how do I do this? But really, MLevel is the one who can really make it happen and do all the back office stuff and all that. So you don't have to stress about, man, this is just one more thing on my plate.
I wanted to make everyone who's on the call aware there is a chat and a Q&A feature. So I've got the chat open. If there's any questions that you have, by all means, please. This is a small group and we'd love to be able to answer your questions directly now. As an aside, we will actually be keeping the call open until all Q&A is answered today. So if anyone's got any questions, by all means, please do put them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll make sure to get to those. I'm curious, so you said, you know, so it's 10 weeks for what people are doing right now. As things change and come and go, I'm assuming in the same way as you'd partner with the larger organizations, if things come and go, you'll adjust it 10 weeks or beyond if needed for those smaller businesses, depending on how much this changes, opens, closes, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair assessment, Kerry. I think we don't know what we don't know today, right? We're, you know, I jokingly say that we're living and breathing every moment of this in real time. So every data point, every element we learn about, every particular challenge that we see from, you know, government data, from the standpoint of testing, from the standpoint of cases, you know, we're hopeful that, you know, we're all in a good place now and that we're gonna have a great summer, and hopefully the fall will be, you know, in line with that. But, you know, we're gonna make a commitment to play it by ear and still try to be good partners of the community, which is our goal here.
So I'm curious, you covered that for an employee, it takes 10 to 20 minutes. If the rules change, they can retake that training. If I'm a restaurant owner, what does it take for me to get connected with MLevel to set this up? How long does that take? What does that take? What does that involve?
Yes, I mean, so you know, obviously there's filling out the form probably takes about 1.5 to 2 minutes, and then there'll be a review process on that. I would say the biggest challenge that the organizations are going to have is getting the employees' names and user files together. That's probably the #1 challenge that every organization will have. You know, not knowing who that staff is, getting their name, getting them assigned to individual sign up. Once we have the username, it's set up. So once you're approved, you get your own individual training instance, and then you just send us a file or you upload the people who are going to be assigned to it. And that's the biggest process, and then they're done. You know, that they have access to the URL, which is essentially that web address. They log into their credentials, which you didn't see me do, which I probably should have done for everyone to see. And then they are live. They are ready to go. And they can get the results. And then if you want the data back, that's where you reach back out to us or to David, and we'll get you the data on that front.
And I know
David, go ahead.
Go ahead.
David.
No, go ahead, Kerry.
Have you had any feedback from Dantana's or others that have been using this so far?
You know, overall, I mean, you know, I think they've been very happy just about making it, like I said, user-friendly. That's the thing, is like keeping the stress level down. But, you know, I was going to say earlier about just how it's always evolving. So this is something like you need to give to your staff, but then when the new guidelines come out, you have to basically re-educate them again. So, you know, it's almost like here's chapter 1, chapter 2, and going all the way through the book on that. So, but yeah, I think, you know, what I've heard, and people are excited about it. The demos that we've shown to people, all types of restaurateurs, from multi-units to, you know, single operators. I mean, they're like, wow, okay, you know, this is very user-friendly. So.
And Kerry, I'll build on that, saying that, you know, this is kind of, think about, you have this, if you're in that restaurateur, you're the owner operator, you have this opportunity to kind of use this as a model to, as you onboard those employees of the future, right? You know, obviously everybody hopes that everybody returns to work, stays at work, and, you know, we continue to scale. But, you know, I had the opportunity this weekend to see one of our local restaurants was open, and the head count that they can have inside the building is quite significant, right? It's versus their overall population. I think they're like 35 people is all they have in the building. So I imagine they have light staff, right, that's running that. So that staff today is only part of the picture. It's staff tomorrow. It's, you know, more back. So, and then it's going to evolve, hopefully get freer, more open through that. And then, you know, you have other things, who knows, you can continue to think about with the new hire orientation and stuff like that, other compliance laws that you can also look at and tackle.
David, I'm curious, what other training will people need to do in addition to this in order to be able to return to work or open up their doors that are not covered by this?
I mean, it's constant. I mean, that's what it is. You know, it's really, a lot has to do with, you know, how you're laying out the restaurant properly. You know, the PPE, making sure you have the tools for your employees to make sure they're doing it safely, and they're doing all that. You know, it's your menu, it's your inventory. There's so many different things right now that you just have to think differently. If you had 50 items on your menu, do you need 50 or do you really need 30? And, you know, so there's so many challenges right now for the restaurateur to just to say, how can I pivot back into this? And you're right. And as it grows, as you get more capacity wise, you know, patio dining, we've had incredible weather. So we've been so lucky about that. What's going to happen on a rainy day when everybody's out on your patio, and you know, where are they going to go eat? So you have to think differently every day.
That's a great, never thought about that.
If I extend this a little bit then, so this training covers the items you just talked about. What are the other things, just so we know, like, where does this start and stop? What does this address and what else is left out of this so that people can think about how to prepare their whole organization?
I mean, like I said, it's going to be different as we move along with this process. And there's going to be, we stress so much about training, like in the hospitality business, we're constantly training and follow through and, but we've always had the philosophy, let's try easier, not harder. So when there is, when it's a new idea and we say, okay, how can this work? I mean, that's when Jordan and I were brainstorming this, like, what's going to just make it easy for the employees? Because sometimes when we're talking over their heads, like, we understand it, but do they understand? 5 times out of 10, they don't. So we want to make sure we're a 10 out of 10 on this.
And Kerry, I'll add, we're really focused on state regulations and the platform.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're really focus on what the governor and the states are rolling out. Right. That's going to be that's core. I think where the opportunity for the business comes in is modifications about what they want to accomplish long term and how they want to run their operation. So as I would say, like someone like David mentioned, like think about that. How do I get to the next level, right? I'm going to run my business and I have to make sure that I'm in line with the state regulations. I don't want health regulators. I don't want to be exposed to fines. I don't want to get whoever OSHA. I don't want to get complaints. The next thing is, how do I operationalize my restaurant on a personal level, right? Do I have a deck, not a deck? What's my threshold? It could be, how do I train people to let people know they're in the queue, sitting in their cars, waiting to come in for their reservation that's in the restaurant. I mean, that's an example that I don't know if it's real or not, but think about, like, you go to a popular restaurant, right? And there's 30, let's say it's 30-person capacity or 10 tables, right? So now you're there for an 8 o'clock reservation. Well, they're running late. The people didn't get up. In an old model, you send them to the bar, you let them go hang out by themselves and do stuff. If your new model says that person can't enter the restaurant, what's your game plan? Does the hostess go out and host go out and take a order from that individual and bring, something to the table, bring them to the car? What's your game plan that's different to keep that person engaged? And there's still an opportunity within our platform to kind of have that conversation and train the folks on that as well.
Thank you, Jordan. I have a question from in the Q&A, and I'd actually wondered about this myself. So say I'm a restaurant worker and I'm still at home not working. Is there a way for me to get this education before I go back to work? Or do I have to wait and be employed by an employer and hope my employer is offering this? Or is this something I could actually take myself as a restaurant worker to be familiar with the guidelines, since they're government guidelines, regardless of which restaurant facility or organization that I was working with?
That is a phenomenal question, and one that I don't think we thought about before the question came up. What I can say is today it's not that way, but there's definitely a conversation that we can have post this a webinar, if that's a thing that we think would help the community. We can have that conversation. I know my team's listening in, wondering what's going on in my head. So we'll discuss it after the call. We won't make any promises calls, but I think it's possible. And if it's possible, we'll definitely get that out. And with your support, hopefully get that out into the community.
That was a great question. I was wondering about that too. So that somebody could say, hey, I'm ready, willing, and able, hire me. Any other questions from anybody in the Q&A or the chat? I'll take a minute for you to do that. With that, if there's any questions, we'll come back to them. I just want to give both of you a real thank you. I know that everybody in the community is trying to do what they can to get us into a new normal that feels better and allows everybody to thrive and run their businesses and live a more normal life. So thank you both. Jordan or David, both, I'd like to give you both the chance to finish off. Jordan, I'll let you go first, and then David, I'll finish up with you.
Yeah, so I just, I thank you, Kerry, first for taking the time. I know you've got quite a few things on your plate personally, so taking the time to host today was really awesome. I would just echo, what we started with was just as a community effort. We are the new member to the community, MLevel is. Right, we're not the industry's veterans here. We're not the people who've been in the restaurant space for a long time. So if there are people who listen in this webinar and have ideas on what we can do, just know we're an open book. We not necessarily will implement every one of them, but we definitely listen, like to learn. And this is a partnership that we're looking to build in the future. And again, our goal here is to help you guys open safely and keep the community safe while doing it.
Thank you. David, how about you? Any last words?
First off, Kerry, thank you so much for hosting this. We really appreciate the time you put in to all this. Yeah, I mean, to go with what Jordan said earlier is, sticking to the guidelines, I think is one of the most important things is, there's so many unknowns, it's like when the health inspector comes in, this is the guidelines you have to stick to, and you have to pretend like the health inspector is coming every day. Same with this. I mean, you have to stick to these guidelines. You can't do it for like a day or two and then forget about it. So I think that's super important. And then, like we've said, it's just constantly evolving. It really, this whole program is just going to keep evolving into bigger and better things. So, and it's been great so far.
I will ask you, David, I'm going to share with everyone how to reach MLevel. What's the best way to reach you, David, if they need to?
Yep. You can reach me through Dash Hospitality Group online through our website. We're very interactive on that, very responsive, do all types of management, consulting, new restaurant openings, everything. So yeah, that's the best way to reach me through our website.
I look forward to that new restaurant opening part. I know that you can reach Jordan at mlevel.com. And I would just echo, it would be great, in fact, if you could send this training to all of the customers who are heading to all those restaurants who don't necessarily know the rules that they need to follow to make everyone's life easier. So thank you for doing this. And I look forward to seeing everyone at the restaurant soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.